Hey guys, and welcome to this brand new 3ds Max tutorial. So this time we've got using a camera and using depth of field. So we're going to start off quite simply by creating a camera. There are a couple of ways that you can create a camera, and the one that we're going to want is a target camera. So we're going to either go into our create tab just here, go down to cameras and click onto target camera, and then we can just pop one in the viewport and face it any way we wish. So we can change that at any point anyway. So that's one way to create one. Another way to create one, which a lot of people do by mistake, when you try to copy an object, a lot of people press Ctrl C. So if you're in the perspective viewport and you press Ctrl C, if you look in all the other viewports, a camera appears. And basically a camera appears in the angle that you're facing in the perspective view. So now if you look here, it's no longer the perspective view, it's the camera 001. So now we're actually viewing from the camera. Now you can just click on that and go down to perspective and zoom out, and there you have it, you'll see that camera. So that's a good way if you want to sort of move around and get the viewport, the point of view that you want to achieve, and then just press Ctrl C. You'll see how it just pops the camera in from that angle. So that's quite good, a little less fiddling about with the camera. But anyway, what we're going to be doing in this particular tutorial is just using depth of field. So let's go ahead and pop in a camera, and I'm just going to use that Ctrl C method. But before I do that, I'm just going to create two objects. Now I want to create just two boxes here, make them different colors as well, so they're contrasting colors. So let's go ahead and create a box here and a box here. Sorry, just because I'm OCD, I need to just change the viewport settings, so edge faces on, selection brackets off. That's the two things that I always do when I start to model. And what I'm going to do here, guys, I'm going to move this box behind a little further back because I want there to be some distance in between. So that's probably going to work okay. Probably push this one forward slightly as well. Okay, so now I'm going to change the colors of these two objects. I'm going to make this one a red, and I'm going to make the one at the back a blue. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about putting anything on the ground or whatever, just because I don't need it there for this demonstration. So now we're going to pop in the camera. So I want to start with this view just here, so I can sort of focus on this front box for a moment, and then the focus is going to switch to the back box. Basically we're going to have the blaring effect, so when the focus is on this box, the background is going to be blurred, and when the focus is on that box in the background, the foreground's going to be blurred. So it's, you know, it's really good. It gives you that kind of film effect, and yeah, so this is the quick and easy way of doing that. So let's go ahead and press Ctrl C. So now we're in the camera. I'm going to leave this view in the camera because what you'll notice, if I go into my top view or in any other viewport and I select the target of the camera, which is this little box, you can just about see it on the end of this line that attaches to the camera. If I move that around, you can see how the viewport, the camera viewport, which is normally the perspective viewport, actually moves live as well. So you really get a good feel for where the camera is facing and what you're going to be able to see. Now one extra step, guys, if you want to know exactly what's going to be rendered based on the dimensions of your render options, you go down onto this little plus, sorry, not on the plus, go onto camera 001. And this works even if it's on perspective, it doesn't really matter. If it's on perspective, it's the same options. You go down and go on to show safe frames. And you see this box, this outline, this is what is going to be rendered basically. So all this space on the outside is not going to be rendered. So this is, I think, based on a 640 by 480 render. So we're going to leave it on that as default. So anyway, let's just move the camera a little closer so we get a closer look at at the boxes. So now we need to move this target, this first target. You see the one just here? We need to move that onto this front box just like that. Now you want to be careful here that you can still see that blue box in the background. So we're going to go ahead and move that target onto there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select, go down to here. So we're using basic animation here as well, guys, so you need to follow along. We're going to go and click onto auto key. I'm going to essentially just go to frame number 20, and I'm going to go onto and press the key button just there. What that means is I've just set a key there for this particular object in that space. Now that I've set the key there, I can go to, let's say, number 50, and then in the top view, if you can't see the outlines of the boxes, just change it to shaded, and then you can see them. We're going to move this target so it now goes over to the other box. So then the focus is going to be over to that box. And by moving that, because we had auto key selected, you'll see that if you look in the top view, for 20 frames it's going to stay in that position, and after that it's going to start to move. The target's going to move to the other box, meaning the focus is going to be with that box and no longer the front box. So that's pretty much, you know, this very simple kind of animation for this camera, and it's going to show exactly what, you know, I want to demonstrate. So let's go back and let's click on the camera itself. Let's make sure we deselect auto key, which is just down here. So you want to make sure you deselect auto key. It's very important, else anything you change within these options is going to be animated. You do not want that, I guarantee that. Okay guys, so once you've placed the camera and you can see that it is in fact animated, it's moving its target from one box to another, we need to go ahead and click onto the Modify tab. Now within this Modify tab, you want to scroll down until you see Multipass effect, and you're going to click onto Enable. Now what that means is, you know, you've got depth of field already set in this drop down. You can also have motion blur and depth of field, which is mental ray, but we don't really want to be using that for now. Let's just go to depth of field and scroll down even further. Now this option basically means that the focus depth is controlled by the target of the camera. So as it's going to change, that's what's going to be the target distance. So that's going to be the focused area. Now below here, this is the settings that are going to control how the actual depth of field looks. If we leave it by default, right, with these options, and press F9 on your keyboard, that's going to do a little preview render. And if you can see there, I don't know if you can see, the foreground is sharp and it's focused, and the background is blurry. And if I switch this up, if I just move this timeline along until the target is now on the box behind, and let's just render this again. Now you can see that the box in the background is sharp and the one in the foreground is blurred. Now if I want to increase that blur amount, because it's not that much, you can just change some of these options here. So if you increase the sample radius, let's say if we go crazy, you know, go up to 11, you see how the blurring is a lot more, but it looks very jagged and not smooth. So first of all, we're going to turn that down considerably. So we're going to put that down to about 2. We're going to see what that looks like. So that's quite blurry now. It's quite nice. The only thing is, again, like I was saying, it's not very smooth. Now that is down to the total passes. If I reduce the passes to 6, half as many, there's going to be half. It's going to be half as smooth. That's essentially what it means. It means that there's not as many passes that try to smooth out the render. But what this actually means, guys, is it has to re-render the scene 6 times to make that effect smooth. Now if we put 20, yeah, so the original was 12, put in 20, it's going to take a little bit longer to actually render, but it's going to give you a smoother output. Now if you go up, you know, considerably higher, like 50, it's going to take a little bit longer. You can see here it's rendering past 33, 34, 35, 36, 41, but the output's going to be, look how smooth that is. That's really smooth. Yeah, and just to show you the other side of that, so when the target's on the box in the background, it's going to render this front box being really smooth and blurry. Now this is just for 1 frame. Just for this animation here, we've got, let's see how many frames, from 0 to 20, going up to 40, 50, I'd say up to about 65 to 70 frames. Now it would have to repeat that process, you know, that 65 or 70 times. And this is a very basic scene, and you can see how long it takes. So this is why depth of field is something you need to add right towards the end of your workflow, because it's one of these effects that you add at the end. If you try to render and, you know, check things out and see how camera angles look with depth of field right from the beginning, then you're going to be wasting, you know, infinite amount of time, because you're wasting your time. It's best to get all your cameras figured out first, all the animations for your cameras, and then you can tinker with depth of field and motion blur and stuff like that. Now you probably won't need 50 passes anyway. You can stick to the default 12, which will give you a decent effect in full motion. So when you're viewing your scene in full motion, 12 is going to be okay. You can push it to 20 if you wish as well. So I'm going to push it to 20, and we're going to be rendering this out as a quick movie. So I'm going to go up to frame 65. So we're going to go on to rendering, render setup, and just here straight away the time output. So we're going to go to range. We don't want the total active time segment of 0 to 100 because I don't want to render out 0 to 100. I want to go to 65. So it's going to be 0 to 65. Next, this is the render size. So obviously the bigger the size, the longer it's going to take to render. So you've also got lots of different presets down here. You can choose HDTV if you want like a widescreen effect. So let's see if we can use a widescreen effect. So you can see straight away that the viewport, that safe frame, is a different size now. Yeah, that's the widescreen size. So I'm going to leave it at that 480 by 270. Let's just stick with widescreen just because it's going to look a bit more cinematic. And then we're going to scroll down, and where it says render output, this is where you set the folder where you want to save your file and the file type. So you click onto files, tutorials, camera, and DOF. Now the default format which I probably would recommend using is AVI, and then click onto setup, and then make sure it's on MJPEG compressor. Click on that one and make sure the quality is up to 100. You can probably push it down to 95, but I wouldn't really go any lower because you will lose that quality. And it will make sure it's a compressed file format. If you leave it on DV encoder or uncompressed, it's going to be a massive file type which won't play back very smooth on your PC depending on how powerful it is. So press OK and then press save. And now what we need to do is click onto render, and then you'll see here it's rendering every single frame, and you can see the overall job. It's saying it's going to take another 50 seconds or so, 51 seconds. Now I have a fairly powerful gaming laptop. It's not a PC, a desktop, but it is very powerful indeed. And yeah, it's taking this long, guys, just to do this 65 frames. Now if you're working on a 20 frame per second movie, for instance, then 65 frames is going to be roughly just over 2 seconds. So you can see just for 2 seconds of animation how long it can take just to render these basic objects. And I'll be going into rendering techniques and all the different options and mental array and stuff like that in other videos in the future. But this is a really basic way that you can really have a go at rendering out some depth of field, you know, really adding a cinematic aspect to your animations and your scenes. It doesn't really necessarily have to be for an animation, it can just be for a singular scene, so you can just add DOF in that way as well. Let's play that with, so you can see here, even though it's let's go on to repeat, so you can see here that the focus changes from the front box to the back box. Yeah, so we've got the focused object there and the focused object in the background. Now although this is a very simplistic tutorial, hopefully it gives you a better idea of how it works and how you can use it in your own workflow, in your own files, scenes and animations. Anyway guys, if you've enjoyed this video, then please do drop a like. It is massively appreciated. Shows me that you like what I'm doing, and I do try to explain things really well, which is probably why my tutorials are a bit longer than other people's, but I do pride myself on trying to really kind of walk you through the process and explain all the different options as best as I can. Anyway guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!